Hi, welcome to Cainers Commodore Capers. Just a quick one here, a bit of a change from the last time. The last video I did was a 1541. Here we have a trusty Commodore 64. Again, another eBay buy, which has in actual fact been sold as faulty. So quite lucky to find one for you here that we can fix. It does in fact have a little bit of an issue. It powers up, but when you power it up, you get the fantastic rainbow effect on the screen, which tells me there's a problem with the colour RAM. I'll show you that now. Okay, there you have it, the issue with the colour RAM. You can see the screen, the writing on the screen, whilst the video and everything is okay, the writing on the screen is blinking away there nicely. Now that indicates a problem with the colour RAM, as I said, and all sorts of issues. It can either be the PLA or one of the gates, one of the logic gates to the RAM that's causing the problem. We'll have a little scope and a grope and see if we can find out exactly what's going on. What we're going to be concentrating on is the 2114 here, which is the colour RAM. We're going to be looking at the signals around the 74 LSO8 chip here, and we're also going to be looking at the right enable here, which goes back to the PLA. We'll be looking to make sure that AEC, address enable control, is working, colour is behaving itself, and we'll also be looking to see, depending on what those two are doing, what the output is here for the chip select for the RAM. Right enable there, as it has a bar across the top of it, is active low, and we'll make sure that's pulsing. Shouldn't be low all the time, because if it is, that means the RAM is being written to, and it won't get the right information, because this the D0 to D4 it can be it's only supposed to be written to at specific times. So if right enable is enabled all the time, that means the RAM is being written to all the time, and the wrong data, the wrong information on the data bus here will be written to the RAM. So the PLA decides when it's time to write enable to the colour RAM. Just in case you haven't seen my previous video, I'm just going to quickly explain what we're going to use today. We have a Tektronix 2445 oscilloscope here, which will allow us to see what's going on the in the 64. We've also got a trusty multimeter here, which is going to allow us to check our voltages, etc. And I think this time, unlike the other time, we're going to need to use our trusted Weller soldering iron, and I'll give you a few tips on how to wiggle your bits and pieces and make sure you get your chips out without damaging them. I think it's time to whip this bad boy apart. It shouldn't take too long. I may or may not speed me up, and you may or may not get some fabulous 64 music. Okay, so that's the board out, and what we're going to do, it's obvious that the 64 powers up. So if the 64 powers up, I'm 99% sure that the voltages are okay. It's very, very unlikely that you're going to get a 5 volt or a 12 volt issue cause that colour blink issue that we've got there. We are going to concentrate on this chip here, which is U6. Can't see that there. Let's see if we can twist that around for you. There we go, U6. That there is the 2114, that's the 2K colour RAM. This one here is the SID, this is the super famous SID. We've got the video chip here as well. First thing we're going to check is the chip select on the 2114 to make sure it's being kicked in properly. I'm pretty sure it is, but we'll give it a go anyway. So if we look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and according to the schematic it's pin 8, which is the chip select. So we'll power it up. There you go. And you can see that after the reset it is actually regularly being selected. Don't know if that's a problem. The chip select should really be bouncing up and down like that. That's absolutely fine. It looks okay to me. What we're going to check now is the right enable for the 2114 colour RAM. The right enable signal comes direct from the PLA, and it's active low. Now this should only be active, it should only get pulsed very briefly when the 64 powers up, because the colour memory is only written to as part of the startup routine, just to make sure that you've got the right famous blue Commodore colours on the screen. Let's just have a look at this and see what we've got. pin 10, as according to the schematic is select. Power it up. And as you can see, that stayed low. So that coming straight from the PLA and the fact that the select is low all the time points all fingers to the fabulous PLA. Let's get that bad boy whipped out. Here's my trusty Weller soldering kit. These particular bits of kit aren't cheap, but you can get very good, reasonably priced soldering irons. I always find it, if you're going to do work on this kind of kit frequently, it's quite important to have a piece of kit that won't damage it and will also put some heat through the board if required. Other stuff we will need during this desoldering, as well as the iron, which is now nice and hot. We'll need this, which is a solder sucker. Unfortunately, which is a real nightmare, you can't get these anymore. These are like gold dust. You used to be able to get them from RS, but you can't get them anymore. I don't know why. These are fantastic. It's a manual solder sucker. We're going to need this, obviously some fairly thin core solder. Okay, so we've got that. And these, again, in my other favourite tool, a pair of Lindstrom snot nose pliers. These are really useful, and I'll show you why. Here's the PLA. These are the two sets of pins for the PLA. Looks like there's been a bit of gunk on there. So give that a bit of a scrub. Old toothbrushes are really good for this sort of thing, or even a new toothbrush. Just don't use your toothbrush, because we're going to do some horrible stuff with this later. Scrub this off, and the first thing I always do with these is get my solder and tin all of the existing pins. Just give it a tin like that. Hold the pin to it, make sure you don't do it too long. You can always give the pins a bit of a loosen up whilst you're doing it. So you can see I'm melting the existing solder, just wiggling the pins about, slightly bending them out from the socket there. Okay. Just by sticking a new bit of solder on there, I know we're going to suck it out, but suck the existing stuff out, but it just gets the old stuff flowing. Puts a bit of flux in there, gets the old solder flowing. Okay, one. You're going to see by the gap that forms around the pin how good or how badly we've done. So let it melt. You can see the solder start to flow right the way around the pin. There we go. Now, most chips will survive this. You can see there, just on there, you can see how we're desoldering there, because we're only not spending too long desoldering on each pin. It doesn't heat the chip up too much. Okay, that's them all desoldered. Now what I'm going to do is one of the most important things, especially when you're desoldering stuff like this, I am going to wiggle the pins. So take the long nose pliers and just wiggle all the pins. Just try and make them as loose as possible. Just wiggle the pins with your pliers like that. You can see, try and do that, get my fingers in the way. You can also judge after a bit of experience. You can also judge how easy this is going to be and how easy the pins are going to come out. Those are actually moving really easily, so this chip should come out nice. It'll also give you a clue as to if there's any ones that are stuck or any ones that don't want to come out. Now, I can't stress this enough, you mustn't ever, if you feel any resistance when pulling the stuff out, if you feel any resistance when removing these chips, just stop. Because what will happen is you'll just pull a track, you'll pull one of these tracks up, and it can cause you untold problems. You have to go through tracing wire, refer to the PCB, refer to the circuit diagrams, and then redo those tracks. It can take you hours. It's an absolute nightmare, so just be careful, okay? Right, here's my trusty flat blade. Again, we're just going to go really carefully. Really carefully. Oh, that doesn't want to move. It doesn't look too good. Let's spin it around so we can persuade it from the other side. Again, when you're doing this, when you are sort of wiggling these out, the end of the screwdriver, again, there's always tracks, there's always something underneath the chip, so whilst you've got to do it, there we go, that's better. Whilst you've got to do it, you can see that's coming out. It's always best to be as gentle as possible, not to dig the screwdriver in. Don't dig it in like that, because again, you'll break tracks on the board. Now, it wasn't too keen on coming the other way, but it doesn't look too bad this way. Not too much resistance. We've got the screwdriver under there. Okay, there's one that definitely doesn't. Oh, there we go. There we are. Okay. Now hopefully I've practiced what I've preached. I've not brought the tracks with me. Fantastic. And there we are, 906.114-01. Out. Well, you can see from there that there's no solder left in any of those. We'll flip it over, do the same again. You can see how much clearer all of those holes are. It's really important to get those clear. Now, again, working on stuff of this age, you don't ever solder a chip back in. You literally always have to put a socket in. So these are fairly easy. Chip sockets are fairly easy to get hold of, don't cost a lot of money, and it's definitely worth doing when you're working on boards of this age, because you don't want to be soldering and resoldering at all if you can help it. Pretty bog standard 28 pin socket. Just going to sit that in there. I mean, you don't have to, but these are notched. I'm a bit anal about it. I like to make sure that number 20, the little notch is at the top. Pin 1 starts at the top left, so we'll sit this one in. Now, what I'm going to do is, the socket will fall out, so I've got my fingers on the back of it. I've flipped the board over and I've got my fingers holding the socket in the back. Now, this is something I've learnt with years of messing around and experience. I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to tin myself a little bit of solder onto there. And you should be able to see me if you can. Just one pin, just one, with a little tiny bit of solder on it is enough to hold that in place. I might do the other end as well. I'll resolder these when we get in, but it just helps to hold the board in place. Right, we're going to grab a PLA. I'm quite lucky I've managed to find some. These are like hen's teeth. But by searching around on the web and I've been looking China, etc., and buying a few at a time, I've managed to get my hands on a few PLAs. I've got a few more than this. But again, it helps us to keep the 64s alive. I'm just going to fit the PLA in. Okay, must have fit into the socket there. Here we have our 64 with the newly fitted PLA, okay, which is good news. It's a moment of truth. Let's turn it on and see what happens. There we are. As you can see there, you've got your Commodore 64 Basic. No, all nice with no rainbow colours. So in this instance, nothing wrong with the nothing wrong with the logic that goes around it. Nothing wrong with the 2.14. It's actually the PLA.